All right, we'll go ahead and get rolling here. And everybody else can, oh, I got to admit more people. All right, here we go. All right, well, thank you everybody for joining the July best practice webinar. I should have this recording at the moment. So for those that don't miss it, I'll share it with them. And obviously they don't know I'm saying this, but they're always available. I do need to share our LGM agronomy YouTube link so that you can access all of these whenever you need to, if there's any important information that you've missed or anything you're looking for. But again, thanks for joining. I know we're in the heat of the summer. We're the dog days, right? Some staff is starting to leave or thinking about leaving. Other just pressures going on, and that's going to be part of one of my topics today with this managing expectations. I'm not going to go super in depth or tell anybody something that they probably haven't already heard or don't already understand, but I think they're good things that we need to kind of cover and remind ourselves about. Um, Also going to talk about a couple other topics here through the agenda. Superintendent Summit information. We have a new regional superintendent on the East Coast. I was going to introduce, and then we'll get into managing expectations, some buying power notes from LGM, and then a couple of topics at the end. But as always, if you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself if you need to. Jump in. I know listening to me talk for 45 minutes can be, maybe not the most thrilling thing. So please feel free to jump in and ask questions when needed. All right. So the first things up is our superintendent summit. I sent out a save the date last week and I did make one little mistake. It said Omaha. It's supposed to say Lincoln. I apologize about that, but it's going to be in Lincoln. Um, we we've outgrown our two things. One, we've outgrown the corporate office space, which is, good and bad, right? We love to meet at the corporate office and have all those interactions, but we are large enough now, and the meeting space there isn't large enough. We're actually going to be at a hotel there in Lincoln, not the Graduate. We're changing hotels to a new location. Um, and we're excited for that. And we all are also joining up with the sales and marketing meeting. Some people kind of look at me weird when I tell them we're going to have the superintendent and the sales and marketing teams together at the same place at the same time. There'll be a couple of joint things between both groups, but a lot of the conference will be separate. A couple reasons why we do this, but it saves Liz a little bit of headache of doing back-to-back conferences. And but yeah, there'll be some joint things I think will be pretty entertaining for everybody with both of these. So save the dates. More information to come. Registration details will come out early August. Liz is working on getting some final details together with that before we send that out. And then my expectation, my goal would be to have at least one person from each property there. Ultimately, it's the superintendent, right? But if you have, for some reason, a schedule conflict and you can't make it, but you have a really strong assistant that you think has, in the short time, might become a superintendent soon, call me, let me know, let's talk about it, let's discuss it, and we can see who the best fit is to have from your facility at this event. But more information to come. Excited to get together with everybody. It's always a great time. So next up, for those that didn't know, I think most people do, but Joe Haskins, who was at Renditions, um, left Landscapes for another opportunity down in Florida, and we wish him the best luck. But that created a great opportunity for Peter. Peter Danaher has been with us for a few years now. He's at Lexington Golf and Country Club. There's some information on the screen here about Peter. Peter, but will be helping us out on the East Coast and some other areas around the country on some regional responsibilities. So we're excited to have Peter. Peter's a very analytical thinker, and Peter is very very detail oriented, and I think that's going to work really really well with his role and his expanded role. So for those that know Peter, reach out and say congratulations to him. If you don't, you can also reach out to him. His contact information is here. Peter will be currently undergoing he just sprayed his fairways out 14 days ago. He's undergoing a full golf course renovation. and going from some common Bermuda and cool season grass to a Tahoma 31 turf. So he's in the middle of that. I believe earthwork is going to start in mid to late October, if I remember right, if the schedule works. But he's going to be a very busy individual. But we're excited to have Peter on, part of our team. Mm. All right. So the next one, we're going to jump into managing expectations. Um, it's never easy being a golf course superintendent, right? We all know this. It's the time of year when tempers get short, from your temper to the GM, owner, staff members, you name it, right? It's the dog days of summer. We can see the end, but there's a lot of stresses still going on. Um, you have like I said here in Colorado, right? Our dew point this morning was 66, 67 degrees. Humidity's really high, temperature's really high. You're struggling some things on the golf course, and those members and golfers want everything to be perfect. Um, your GM is having some extra stresses up in the clubhouse. Your board of directors is looking for things, your members, general public, right? That Google review came in because somebody didn't like the condition of the turf on the driving range. And, some courses live and die by their Google reviews. So you get an email on a Sunday morning that the driving range isn't perfect. Okay. We're trying to manage that. Your expectations of the golf course are changing. And you have goals. You're probably the most critical person and the most critical eye of the person on the golf course. And you see things that are coming and dealing with things, and your own expectations are becoming, being tested. And those are, obviously environmental, your staff, equipment, irrigation. We can name a list of 100 things of why your expectations are and what you're looking at. I have a couple stories to tell. This one, it's more of a attaboy to superintendents and what you do. I'd love to share this story with people outside the industry as well. But I've got a really good friend that's high up in the sports turf world, and whenever we get together at a conference or for lunch or over a couple of beers, we always like to debate whose job is harder, right? It always comes up is, I bring it up to this gentleman that all you have to do is take care of 2 acres of perfectly flat turf. Okay, maybe it's got a little bit of an arch in it, right? But perfectly flat turf that's got a perfect soil profile. And you're mowing it at an inch and maybe 3/4 of an inch, inch and a half, depending on what you're doing. And people play on it once a week. And you've got 12 guys to help you. Like, how hard can your job really be? Um, so then I dropped the line, he says it's just golf, right? It's no big deal. You don't have 400-pound or 300-pound linebackers going all over the field and tearing it up. But that's what I tell him, that every golf course out there, from your very high-end clubs down to your mom and pop clubs, have 3 acres of turf that's mowed at an eighth of an inch or less. And it's not perfectly flat. And there's balls flying in at it all the time. And there's all these different environmental pressures. And if you really look at it, you really step back and look at the holistic picture of what you're doing every day, it's pretty amazing to see that you can take care of a golf course like that, and you can have 3 acres of turf that I don't have any money on my desk right here, but I always try to tell people that don't understand an eighth of an inch is you take 2 dimes and lay them flat and stack them on top of each other. That's taller than an eighth of an inch, right? So you're mowing your turf on 3.5 acres at less height than that and keeping it in immaculate shape and great conditions. And it's pretty impressive, right? And then we spread that over, 90 to 120 to 150 acres of everything else that's involved with that. So um, a lot of you guys will start to you focus in on 200 square feet of turf that's in poor condition over 200 acres. And yeah, we want that to be perfect, but you've got to manage your own expectations, right? You've got to understand of the holistic big picture that you're doing. Um, and yeah, these after two, three, four drinks in the evening, me and my buddy might start yelling at each other, get a little more animated over this, right? But it's a great conversation to have. And I always like to share that story, and it's a debate that turfies will have forever. And then one more story as I was building um, this talk, I got an email. I'm not going to shout out what superintendent this was from because I don't want to not get them in trouble, but even call them out. But um, somebody was having some struggles because one of their members was complaining about the green speeds of their golf course. And this golf course, it's a high-end club. Their green speeds to me are probably always at least an 11, if not more, even through the heat and stresses of the summer. And this superintendent sent me an email, or I was copied on the email, because a member had bought a green speed stick on Amazon and was out rolling the greens and checking green speeds while this person was playing. And I've seen these green speed sticks on Amazon before, and I'm glad a lot of people don't see them, but apparently this person was using the stick and getting readings at like 6 or 6.5. And this superintendent, in a political way was like, well, that's great. You're getting those readings. And yeah, you would think to a normal person that that's slow. But I looked up this stick online and you're actually supposed to double those numbers of your reading. So actually, if you're getting a 7 on that reading, that means our greens are rolling a 14, which means that our greens are rolling faster than they're supposed to, right? And it it it's another just quick story of those expectations and education of our members and our clientele and what actually needs to be done and what you're actually doing out there on the golf course. But it was a story where I knew the superintendent was frustrated, but it made me smile a little, right? It just big picture, it made me think about what you guys go through on a day-to-day basis. Um, One thing you can always do, and I've got another slide, a couple more slides to cover on this, but you know, don't sit there and stew on these expectations yourself. Reach out for help. Reach out I think I got them in here. Reach out to your regional superintendents, right? Have that conversation when they call you every week, every 10 days, text messages, however that communication works with you in the regionals. Just talk to them about it, right? Say, hey, I'm feeling some stresses and pressures from my GM on fairway conditions. How do I manage that? Right? That's what that regional superintendent's there for. What they're there for is to help you through those things and talk through it and let you know what's going on. Reach out to me, always available. Right? Call me, talk to me. Other superintendents in your area, right? All of you have your network of friends, of your vendors, of your sales reps that you talk to. Talk to them. They they're going through the same things you're going through right now, and and it's a team. We want to make sure you're getting through it. Another 45 days from now, it's going to be nice. You're thinking about aeration. All these pressures are going to be behind you, but reach out for help if you need it. All right. So one thing I did as I was building this is, um, I don't know how many of you use Chat GPT for anything, but I went to Chat GPT and I typed in the sentence of, with all the environmental and stresses of a golf course superintendent in the summer, what are the top 4 things that they can do to manage expectations? Okay. And I'm beginning to love Chat GPT more and more. But the number one thing it came out with is communication is key. Okay. You've got to clearly communicate what's going on to people out there. You can't just sit there and stew on hey, member B is very upset with my golf course. You've got to share what's going on the golf course with people, right? And that can be talking to your general manager, right? That can be being out on the golf course and being visible, talking with members, talking with players, having lunch up in the clubhouse and talking with other people up there. Newsletters, social media posts, get out in front of issues that you see coming up on the golf course, and this will help those manage those expectations. Try to communicate the why, um, excuse me, of why these issues are happening. Not just that, hey, our fairways are dry, please keep your carts off. Let them know. Hey, our irrigation system is 30 years old, right? The weather's been extremely hot. Our water uniformity on the golf course just isn't what it should be, and we're working to fix that. But in the meantime, you're going to see some dry spots. Okay, just a short little 1 minute, 2 minute video that goes out on whether it's emailed to your membership group or just through Facebook, social, or Instagram, something like that. I think it'd be great, right? Jeff Kelly's really good. I see Jeff on here. He's really good at doing those things and sharing information and what's going on out on the golf course, right? And Jeff, I know that Adam up at Fox Acres can reach out to Jeff and they can communicate that information really easily and quickly. Okay, so ChatGPT spit out. You got to play the balancing game, right? It's an act. You got to you know under help the golfers to understand that firm, fast, smooth is what you want, but sometimes you're going to have wet spots. You're going to have to poke some holes in the greens to keep the turf alive. Optimum playing times, right, or maybe in the shoulder seasons of your club. You're going to have some struggles. You're going to have some things that aren't perfect now in the middle of July, so that the golf course in mid-August through the end of October is perfect. You got to communicate those things. All right, ChatGPT spit out, you can only do so much. This is a good one, right? That you can only go so far with what you have. Your types of turf might be the wrong types of turf, and you need to do a full renovation. As I mentioned before with Peter, right? He spent years communicating that the turf was wrong for their climate and what they're currently doing, and now they're finally sprayed out their fairways and they're doing a golf course renovation to change the types of turf to improve these things. Heritage Hunt went through the same thing of a turf transition recently, and um, it was a tough process. Expectations were not met or explained correctly when they went to spray these fairways out and do the transition. So it created a big storm for the superintendent and for Joe Gellner and myself, and stepping into this property and trying to explain the information that should have been shared with the ownership and the board before the process ever took place. Um, and then the last number four was transparency. Okay. Um, be honest. Be honest with the board, be honest with your owners, be honest with yourself of what you can actually do and what you can't do to meet those expectations of what you're doing. um, so coming to the next slide, right? Will expectations ever soften for you as a superintendent? We all know the answer to that, right? No, right? It's never going to get any better. I guarantee it. It'll never get better. It's just probably going to get worse because you are so good at what you do. You guys are really, really good at what you do, and you're getting better and better and better. I'll bring up this weekend. I made my two kids watch Happy Gilmore, the first one, because they'd never seen it. And that movie was made back in 1996. And watching the movie, what am I doing? I'm looking at the turf conditions of the golf course they're playing. And as they're putting, I look at it and it looks like that green is mowed at quarter inch. Right. And now we're mowing it, you know, 0.09, some maybe 0.08, like getting below a tenth of an inch mowing. And it's just going to get lower and lower, and our greens are going to get faster and faster, and those expectations are going to be there. So you've just got to work on managing those expectations and selling your story. And we're here to help you, right? We're here to help you sell those stories and come up with ideas and what you need to do. What's next here? All right. So from that, any questions on expectations? Anybody have any tips or keys that have helped you in your career to help manage some of those expectations? Easy enough. All right. Okay. So I'm going to jump in real quick next to um, a couple quick slides just so you guys can be thinking about this. Most of you do know this, right? But we have a lot of national agreements set up with our partners throughout the country. And I just want to make sure that our superintendents are doing the best they can to use these agreements. We all know, right, a lot of this stuff, right? These agreements are set up to have the best pricing possible for you and your team to save money, to get you a better product at a lower price. Right? A lot of our agreements, I'll have these conversations with our superintendents about why you don't use Syngenta, why you don't use InView, why you don't use BASF products. And let's say they can't afford it. Um, but if you do a lot of the pricing and you sit down and actually do the math, a lot of our agreements will bring those national name brand products down closer to the price of the generics. And then you get the company backing, you get product guarantees, you get the research, there's a lot of things, right? Um, we continue to find companies to partner with. I have a meeting right after this with a company that we're looking to partner with and hoping that works out. I think it'll help a lot of you across the country. But if that being said, if there is a company out there that you think would be good for us to work with, let me know and we'll talk about it. Side on here, Mike is currently updating our power to buy information for the entire portfolio from food and beverage to golf shop to agronomy and carts. And more information will be coming out on that soon. Easier for you to access, easier for your GMs to access and see what our power buy programs are. And I'm also working on a cheat sheet for the agronomy team that I'll probably hand out at the superintendent summit is my goal. But just so a quick little one pager PDF document that you can look at and see what our agreements are with these companies so that you know which ones you can be doing business with, or where you can save a little bit more money for your team or for your department. Right? We know this too, how to take full advantage of these, right? Make sure your distributors know. All of our agreements are set up in a way that your distributors should put our information in, and then it'll trigger an alarm for, let's say, Syngenta, that a Bryce is buying Syngenta products from, a Simplot right here in Colorado, and that'll trigger that, hey, we get a special pricing, and that's what that pricing will come down right to you through the invoices. Also, do your homework on the EOPs that are coming up here in the next couple of months. Make sure that you're hitting all of those advantages through the early order programs, and keep your eye on extra savings. A lot of times, if you qualify through an EOP program and you hit a specific number, that'll trigger savings for you for the rest of the year on any other products you need to order. So just take your time, think through it. Usually most EOPs are due on Halloween. It seems like forever from now, right? But you're going to start seeing some EOP information coming out in the next 15 to 20 days from some of your reps. So just be ready to do that homework. Again, if you have questions about it, you need help, reach out to me, reach out to your regionals. We'll help you walk through it. I'll also have a couple of meetings coming up soon with a couple of our vendors specifically around their EOP programs so that we're all educated and we know what's coming there. I also wanted to share real quick so that you do know the companies through our agronomy partners currently. I'll list it here on the screen. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but if you're doing business with any of these, just make sure you talk to your rep next time they stop by and make sure that they know that you're an LGM property and that you should be receiving special pricing with these relationships. One I did want to stand out is InView. That's one company that, in order to get the rebates, you need to go in and register your golf course with InView and with their discount programs. I did send out an email a couple of months ago about that to make sure you are registered. But if you do any business with InView, reach out to your rep, make sure that you are registered with them so that your rebates do kick in and your course gets those rebates on a timely manner. Again, more information to follow. I just want to make sure everybody knew and was aware of our partnerships, and we'll continue to grow those. Okay. The next one last area, I think this is the best part of any webinar, right? It's cool tips. As I travel the country, I see some cool stuff that you guys do. You guys might all know about this. Maybe I don't. I was riding around in a cart with Norm a few weeks ago, Norm Parsons at Prairie Green, and I saw this little disc in his glove box, and I'm like, what is this thing? Right? It looked like a coaster to me. And it's it's a newer weed eater string setup that adapts to any weed eater on the market. And we all know, right? You have that 17, 18-year-old kid working for you that um, they run the weed eater, right? And then they grab the weed eater, go out there and start weed whacking, and then 15 minutes later they're back in the shop. And they've got weed eater string all over the place. They don't know what they're doing. So they grab the mechanic. The mechanic's working on a fairway unit. Now they got to teach a kid again how to wind weed whacker string. Get it all set up, tap it on the ground, it's good to go. They go back out, boom, they're back 15 minutes later. They can't figure it out, right? Everybody's been through this process. Um, so this, it's an adapter that attaches to your weed eater head, and then these you just pop the. I'll show another picture in a second, but it's a speed loader. You just pop it off, put this disc on, the lid back on, off you go. It takes 20 seconds to swap out weed eater string. It probably takes you under 5 minutes to teach somebody how to work the weed eater and how to change the string out. Very, very cool little process. Here's a couple more pictures I borrowed from their website. The string also lasts 20 to 30% longer than your normal weed whacker string. It auto feeds. It works right through the system. So it's a cool product, right? I think it's something that's maybe a time saver for a lot of you and a frustration that you deal with that might shorten and become a little easier. So I should have switched the slides around, but you can find them on Amazon. Right? They're the head itself. I looked on Amazon just because I wanted to see how available it was. Right here, and it shows you, right, your weed eater head size down here on the bottom. You'll have to look through the specs of what weed whacker you have, of what size you need. But for 27 bucks, a lot of you guys have between 4 to 8 weed eaters. So you're looking at 100 to 200 bucks to convert all your weed eaters to this system. And then the little discs themselves this is from Site One, right? This is 25 spools this does not have our national agreement on there. So for us, I would say it's probably about $40 for a spool or for a pack. Brings you down to $1.70, $2 per spool. And that, it's a little more expensive than your weed eater string, but it's going to last a little bit longer and it's going to save you some time and frustration doing this. Me personally, my favorite job on the golf course, and Bryce, close your ears, but my favorite job is to weed eat. If I show up at your property, you need somebody to catch up with weed whacking, let me know. I'll show up a couple hours early and come out and weed whack. I love it. It's fun to do that. People think I'm in a bad mood because I'm out there weed eating, and I'm loving every second of it. So I think this is a cool tool, cool tip. I'm glad I saw it when I was touring around with Norm. More questions about it, let me know. Reach out to Norm. I know he would answer any questions you have about it. I'm assuming a few of you guys are already using this as well at your properties. I just didn't know it, but pretty cool tip. But from there, any questions, any comments, any concerns? Easy. Awesome. Well, there, you guys did have to listen to me for 30 minutes. That was my goal. It's July. I want to get you in and out of here in 30 minutes, and we're right on that number. So I really appreciate everything you guys do for us. Keep up the good work. And I will send a link out to this after I download the recording and a link with all of our other best practice webinars so you can catch up if you have any tips or need anything there. But I appreciate you guys being here, and we'll talk real soon. Keep up the good work. Thank you, everybody.
Great job. Thanks, Chris.